public spaces. I don't know if you've run into this yet, but I ran into a situation where I'm at the point. It sounds so Hollywood, but like people watch my content now, and they're
Yeah.
way closer than I think. I was in a marching band competition,
Oh
and
wow.
somebody like did a cryptic. I was just like, because something that I do, I think you mentioned it in the conversation with Shark. Every once in a while, I just Google my name just as he was talking some shit, and I saw somebody say, "Wow, I can't believe like one of the streamers I watch teaches in another marching band," and then I just like replied with a smiley face, and it's like, "Oh shit!" And then a part of me's like, "Damn, like it's getting that close, huh?"
It's I did literally the week before I decided I was going to quit. I did a presentation for some type of like conference, and somebody it was like we're doing Zoom conferences.
Yeah.
So somebody has a question. They said, "Are you FD Signifier?" And it felt like somebody called me by my stripper name. It was like, yo, we at work.
Yeah.
Like I didn't work for like a super conservative space, but
Yeah.
that wasn't common knowledge. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm quitting. So yeah. Oh shit. Fuck. I keep forgetting where I'm at with the Twitch.
Oh yeah. So like I guess to set the floor, what I've learned in the past 48 hours, I don't care about nigga. Fuck it.
Okay, cool.
But C word, I'm not fucking with that shit.
Not fucking with the C word.
Yeah, the new C word.
Protected class.
I was on, I guess because we are going to talk about it. I guess we'll do it now, right? Like,
just go in.
Yeah. So something that how do I say this? I'm excited at watching all these white people fight. I think it's very exciting. I think it's very refreshing. But it's because for me, right? I have had to always be sort of conscious about my racialization all the time. Like I can't avoid it. And something that I think is interesting is watching white Americans in different parts of the country kind of coming to terms with the consequences of racialization.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Here, so I'm listening up.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is like I don't think it sounds so weird to say, but sometimes I think white people forget that they're white people in America
all the time.
and now it's at the point where it's like, oh, they gotta handle this shit head on.
Yeah. It's a byproduct of the critical race theory shit is the backlash to it is bullshit overall.
Yeah.
But I understand why it's happening because there's been legitimate like cultural zeitgeist changes in the last year. Now, whether they'll translate into material changes, right, is a different question. But I would surmise that in order to have material changes, you have to have changes in the cultural zeitgeist to precede those.
Right.
So, crossing fingers. And so one of those changes is like white people having to kind of engage with the concept of whiteness. Because I would completely agree with you that white people, I say that so often. I feel like I'm saying it in like 3-4 different videos that white people don't understand that they're white. They don't understand what that means because they've never had to. White people in general, I say culturally illiterate.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Where they don't have to engage with their own cultural anything from in a critical way, outside of the colonial constructs that are already in place for them. And so the byproduct of that, I guess, but I won't put I was about to say it. I won't put the C word discourse in that pocket though.
Sure.
I don't think that's emblematic of that. I think the C word discourse there's always been a handful of white people trying as hard as they can to make reverse racism a thing. And then there's a handful of white people that say this sounds stupid. I guess the thing that's missing is that the people saying this is stupid aren't also they're not basing their argumentation in critical race theory or anything adjacent to it. They're just saying this sounds stupid. And so in that opportunity is lost.
Yeah, I guess
great if one of them kind of like unfurl, and maybe somebody is, I'm thinking of the more notable figures,
right?
That I don't want to get into too much, but it doesn't seem like they're actually unearthing the reason why this doesn't work or make any sense. They're just kind of annoyed at how dumb it is, which, good enough, whatever.
Yeah, it's like that's a good point, because on one hand, it's exciting for me, right, to see this conversation about language, and then some people are just like, this is like kind of like that, where there's like two camps I've run into so far. There's like a lot, but there's like a few that really stick out to me, where they'll say like, this word is really bad, and it's like, okay. What does the word invoke that makes it so bad? And they're like, but bro, it's a slur.
What songs come to mind when you hear that word?
Yeah.
Are there any really sad songs that come to mind? Any Jet magazine covers?
Any like Drake album?
Right, right. You know what I'm saying? Like, baby, he was one. Like any. Is there a documentary you were forced to watch 7 times in middle school? that is accompanied by that is triggered by hearing this word.
Yeah.
Or are you an asshole?
Yeah. and then and the thing is that like I wanna, because something about slurs, like if I were to go back to school right now, I would probably look somewhere into like the language of race and how it evolved, because what words invoke like is really interesting to me. Like when somebody hears the C word or is called the C word, like I'm curious like why people think it's bad from like a I'm not a damage standpoint, but like I said, like in terms of what that invokes. But then like when you ask that question, they'll say like, bro, it's a slur and all slurs are bad. And it's like,
oh,
it's like, sure. But I just want to know, like, what's this invoking?
Which is why I reject the idea of calling it a slur. Now, if you want to say it's derogatory or pejorative, sure. I don't use that word because I recognize that if I'm using that word, I am overtly trying to disrespect somebody, right? So I'll give you that. And if Twitch had like effective standards and practices as it pertained to that were even, I wouldn't care. I mean, I would care less than I already don't care, right? But to be a slur, it has to have a slurring effect. It has to be attached to other images or ideas or traumas that are evoked when you hear it. So when I hear the hard ER, I think of all those middle school documentaries I was forced to watch instead of The Lion King. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, if you don't have that, then you're just. I haven't heard a single valid argument other than from the black people can be racist too camp. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, I get that.
And like beyond that, I don't know. It's a unique group of people doing what they usually do. It's within this moment, I guess, another unique group that they're directly in conflict with. Which like, all right, so I know I'm gonna run you over, but like. This really gets to one of the like big issues I put out there about my views of the stream economy. I don't know what to call it at this point. I'm going to get away from saying debate bros.
Sure.
I'm just going to say the stream economy, with especially in progressive circles, progressive places on the left, whatever term you want to use. It's mostly white people. It's mostly white on white crime. It's mostly white on white crime. It's mostly them fucking with each other. And I used in one of my videos the image of the scene from Django Unchained at the end where Candy shoots Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
Yeah.
And like they're arguing about who's the best, and like Django and Broomhilda are in the back, literally in the background, like we're free, like we can go.
Yeah, it's like this weird
hand so we can go.
Yeah,
and so we don't even have that.
Yeah, and it's like we good, like we can leave, like we don't have to do anything. We can just
go.
Yeah,
fuck your pride. Shake this dude's hand. We won.
Yeah, it's like we won. Like thank you for the transaction. Double check the signature. Make sure it's in your pocket on the way out, and then
Right.
just don't just start some shit on the way out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, one more thing. It's like, oh, here we go.
Right.
Like that's the one. Like, oh god. Like personally, I hate that. I hate that person. Like you're in class. It's like class is done at 9. It's 8:59. Any questions, anybody? I have. It's like fuck.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
to play devil's advocate,
Yeah.
what if, per se, yeah.
Or like, I have a question about the assignment that's due next week, and it's like, fuck, they forgot about that. Why are you bringing it up now?
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I forgot I assigned. It's like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even like when we were talking about like CRT, like one of the things, I guess to set the floor a little bit about what I do on the internet, I talk a lot about education. And basically, what's kind of been overly invested in is getting people into the conversation of like what school board, like what school government looks like, and how that manifests itself in like things that you can navigate around. And something that's very interesting to me is kind of like calling back to the CRT thing. How many white Americans are going up to bat in school boards, and it always feels weird when it sounds kind of fucked up, but it's a little weird like when they finally find the minority in their community, and then that person kind of gets platformed in such a way, and then once the time's up, it's immediately discarded. The best example I could give is her name's Keisha King. She was a parent, and she's a black mother in Florida who was like,
Florida is oof.
yeah, and she was like one of the only like prominent faces that was like who was black, who was talking about like anti-CRT.
I'm still listening.
Yeah, like talking about anti-CRT in Florida. And then after she got embarrassed, I think by Dr. Rashad, she was either on the Bullpen or some show. She got embarrassed. She looked really dumb, and then I didn't see her again. And then DeSantis is going up there talking about the Stop Woke Act, and then in the back I see Keisha King, and it's like, I know what's going on here. I know what's
Like, your ass out again.
Yeah, and I guess like something that is a little concerning to me in the meetings that I've seen and listening to the parents go against it with a bunch of things, right? Like I know that they're not talking about CRT. Like they're mainly talking about like cultural responsive teaching, social emotional learning, equity initiatives, diversity initiatives, and there are like some problems with that. Maybe we can get into like where like certain things and within that. But what concerns me so much is that it's so easy for dissenting opinions to voice dissent, and I'm always curious about how voices of support can kind of cut their way through, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I was a teacher for almost 10 years. I left toward in the middle of my 10th year, whatever. I left just before I hit 10 years.
Yeah.
But I taught in a variety of environments, and the thing to me that's clear is the first thing is who's actually even there to talk. So if you're talking about a school board hearing, and you're talking about, we'll say, voices that are marginalized. They're marginalized because on one reason, because they just have less access to speak on the issue, let alone like, oh, I've read Derek Bell, or I've paid attention to this debate, or whatever, but can I get off work to come to this meeting? Something as simple as that. And so it's like up until that point, it's hard to even say how to even stop some of this nonsense,
Yeah.
Because it's not a real thing. It's a populist. I said to somebody the other day that at this point, where the Republican Party does not govern, they don't have any actual governance on their platform. It's just obstructionist and populist legislation. We're going to outlaw, trans people in bathrooms. we're going to outlaw CRT, we're going to outlaw abortion. None of these things have real, tangible effects on the lives of the people that they represent, other than them finding joy in making other people worse off. And that's what CRT is. It's a great rallying cry for that community, which is why, to me, every white liberal leftist, whatever the term they want to use, needs to move out of the urban area that they gentrified and into these rural areas that are outlawing CRT so they can take over the school board and fix the problem in like 2 generations. Just do that shit.
Well, I mean, I'm sure a lot of school boards function in a nonpartisan capacity, so you can just slide your way in there, dabble a little bit of the parents' voices must be heard. Right, I agree.
Strong American values. Give me some other dog whistles. Just throw a couple of dog whistles out there.
Taking back education, something government. Think about the kids.
Right. There you go. All that good stuff. Do a couple of those, and then as soon as the vote come up, no, I don't think we should cancel critical race theory. And just you get the sound the alarm, but by then it's too late.
Yeah.
You've done something. We struck a blow.
Yeah, it's frustrating too, because there's a few things happening at the same time. Like, the thing for me personally is I want to go into the classroom where the probably white teacher said something about something, white people inferior, something, some just awful lesson that was the tipping point into this nonsense. Because something that I think did happen is that there were maybe there are a handful of teachers who were probably just really excited about trying to translate what they learned in the classroom, but they're not quite there in terms of interpreting the ideas and having it internalized. So what that kind of looks like, or a hypothetical situation, what that might look like is you'll have a teacher who goes to the diversity teaching, the equity training. They're really excited. Black History Month is next week. And then they go in and say, I want to talk about slavery. And then the supervisor doesn't respond. And it's well, here's my lesson plan for it. Let me know how it goes. Supervisor doesn't respond. And the lesson is tomorrow. And then they just have a bunch of cotton gins, and they say, hey, we're going to learn how to pick cotton today. And it's fuck.
Black history.
Yeah, Black history.
Isn't it sad, guys? Isn't it sad? Yeah. Isn't it great that we don't do this anymore? Yeah.
And the thing is, I've seen, there's a handful of those stories that pop up every once in a while. Mm. So there is this is one thing that I kind of remind people, there are teachers everywhere making shitty lessons, and that's going to be a thing that's that what's her name, you see that art teacher or a math teacher who was doing those indigenous chants?
No.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad.
Math? No.
And then she had an indigenous student in the class, and then he just hit record, and it's I'm just gonna drop out. And it's you know what? If I'm that student, I'd be I want to get pulled out of the school. Why? And then just look at my phone. Just have at it.
Yeah, teaching is. I've had shitty lessons. I made my kids analyze a Tool song once because I just had nothing planned, and the song was 10 minutes long, and I had 20 minutes before class was over.
Yeah.
So I was like, look, we're gonna listen to this Tool song. I don't want you to tell me what it's about. And so being shitty in a way that is not around super important things that is not going to traumatize or stigmatize your students, I think everybody can get a pass on.
Right.
Native American chants, indigenous people chants in the class with your indigenous student is that's pretty bad.
Yeah, or even and again, that's the thing that frustrates me a bit, because those teachers who do those lessons are not consistent with like the vast majority of teachers in the States. I would say that like per every million, there's maybe one or two where that's happening. Maybe, if I'm being charitable. But what sucks is that we're in an age where it just takes a simple record and then it's on Twitter, it's viral.
Amplify it.
And then every single diversity and equity officer is like, oh, I guess we got to talk about why this is bad. And then on top of that, it then creates, in my opinion, like those bills that have like a bunch of things that I would argue are like generally like, I don't want to say agreeable premises, and that like, okay, you probably shouldn't be saying this in class anyway, and there's already parameters around this, because like if your supervisor came in and you just said, all right, black students, just so that you know, like you're not the same as these white kids, like the supervisor's like, wait a minute,
if you're teaching God, I made fun of her in one of my videos. If you're teaching Francis Cress Wilson, yeah, you can't do that. You probably shouldn't do that in a class, period. Definitely not in a class of mixed races.
Yeah.
You can't talk about how the white man envies the black man's penis and that's why racism exists.
Yeah.
That's probably not good for somebody's gonna clip that. I heard about clips.
Yeah.
Don't clip me.
Yeah. I made it so that you have to be following my channel for 3 months until you're able to clip. So that's the long haul. They gotta be in there hating every single time, just counting down the days. Like,
right. But yeah, so yeah, it's not that there's not, crazy folks. I've known some. Your 2 million, I would bring that down to maybe like 1 in 300,000, depending on where you're teaching. So you're in the Northeast. I taught in the South. I taught in high need schools my whole career, pretty much. And there were a lot of bad teachers. But it was also like that's how those high need schools work. It made me a worse teacher at times because you're so unsupported on multiple levels. The kids need so much. You don't really have the capacity to give them even a fraction of what they need. There's secondary trauma happening left and right. Kids are getting jumped and shot. And I was at the school where the kids murdered their mom. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I remember that story. Jesus.
Those little girls were at my school. I didn't teach them particularly, but I knew of them. They were they were relatively, they weren't, I didn't think they were murderers. I'll give them that. But like that's, so it's hard to do any type of work in that type of environment. These bills are not helping. These bills are not doing, like these bills, first off, these bills aren't going to stop anything. No. They're not going to, just like the trans bathroom bills in practice, right, are not going to stop the average passing trans person from using the bathroom of their choice. Just like they've been doing up until this point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's because, like, the thing that's funny, not to interject a little bit, just to give some context for people who don't know, like, these trans bathroom bans are getting, how do I say this? They're coming at the same time where FERPA and Title IX still exist. So you're not going to have a situation where, like, okay, what's identifiable information, everybody? Like, right. So if somebody is, let's say, femme passing, they're gonna use the girls' room, and there's not much like. And then if a teacher does anything to escalate that, I mean, you might as well just clean your desk right there. You're not gonna. It's gonna get weird.
You're gonna end up on TikTok, and YouTube, and you're gonna get fired. So it's really just it's Pyrrhic victories for this conservative, diet fascist wing of America's political right. And like, so first, nobody was ever teaching critical race theory. Critical race theory is a very so critical race theory is maybe an umbrella for lots of things that might end up in a classroom, but that's like saying we're teaching, I don't know, words instead of literature. You know what I'm saying? It's such a big umbrella concept. If you're not, unless you're not going to teach any Black history or any Black literature or like a lot of that, then you know, which I know some of them that's what they plan on.
Right.
But for those people that are really gonna like do that, they weren't teaching it anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't teaching critical race theory in Podunk, Texas in the first place. They weren't teaching real history. A lot. We've seen those books for years come out and say slaves were treated pretty well and weren't all that unhappy. You know, we've seen those in the media. So it's really just DeSantis and whomever else, you know, alley-ooping themselves with easy, ridiculous, over-the-top things that their base falls for.
And then even in certain discussions, like I got some heat at a school once. So, because basically it was, of course, it's Black History Month, and I got asked to talk about like jazz history and just music broadly, and something that I got a lot. It was like a round table type of thing, and something that I got a lot of pushback for was just a simple idea of like, if it was not for the synthesis of European and African elements in what's now formed the United States, music would be vastly different. And then I just got like a bunch of Pikachu faces for some of the people. Like, what? And it's like, I mean, yeah. And then there's one woman, like, God, she was a history teacher, and she's just sitting there challenging me. And she was like, what are some examples that you could have for that? And I'm like, Creole, New Orleans jazz, Creole music, like. I'm sitting there like really confused because it's like this woman with a PhD in her title is really going to try and push back on the simple idea that feels like a very basic thing. That's
and that's the thing I've come to understand for a while now is sorry, I'm making some tea because you catching me late. Just disclaimers. I'm tired. The kids are, I think, in bed.
All right.
And that's it. You know, this is you're gonna push past my bedtime, but it's fine. I wanted to come chop. What was I saying? With these types of issues and arguments, it's all about affirming hegemonic structures.
Sure.
It's like these people don't hate, and I always like to use myself. To make it like as real as I can. So I'm pushing 40. I was never a Republican, but I've come to understand that I was relatively conservative for most of my life. Right? Because that is what I think the baseline of the Black experience tends to lead you to. People think of Black conservatism as that's a complicated thing there. I'll just say that conservatism for Black people is different. It's a survival instinct. It's it's not actual explicit belief in certain conservative principles. It's if you keep on doing this other shit, you're gonna get killed or put in jail, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where a lot of that comes from. But that's a deeper conversation and more research and video. So I had my own experiences with homophobia. I had a frat brother who was gay and not out because we're talking about the early 2000s, but you know, understood. You know what I'm saying? It was understood he was gay. And I was never disrespectful towards him. I never joined in on the homophobic slurring that would happen within the fraternity, yada yada yada. But I also was not challenging that. You know what I'm saying? I also didn't want to appear to be affirming of his right to be a sexuality that was not my own. And that's how it starts. It starts not with like, and that's what's been a big part of some of my messages on race is that we think the woman you're talking about probably didn't think she was being racist. But what she was doing was obviously very racist. It's just that it wasn't hateful. It wasn't overtly or explicitly cruel or harmful. It was just her wanting to diminish your Black voice because she felt like that was necessary within that moment.
Yeah.
And because it's not an emotional response, because it doesn't have the blood and viscera that we've been taught to think about when we think about racism because it didn't have the slurring effect of the she just went with it. And if you'd have checked her on it, she would have, you'd have become the angry black man. You know,
that's
and if you'd have complained about it afterward, you become angry. So that is the incredible 8-sided 4D chess of racism, at least in America and essentially worldwide, where it's the book I always tout. It's racism without races, where the system perpetuates itself on its own motion and movement without the need for, George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery to happen too often, and those still keep happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and even within, and this is the one thing that really can, like, God, if I were to make a video right now, if I were to make a YouTube video, if I were to delve into like an essay, the one essay that I would do would be, and this is going to be a fun one, is that in defense of Candace Owens. Because something it would be a banger. Because one thing that I do think is interesting within the conversation about how, like, basically the tonic question, how do we stop treating black people in America like shit? Very easy yet complicated question. But I think what's frustrating is that sometimes, for instance, for Black Lives Matter, right? Like, people will unironically say, like, well, what about all the things that are happening within the black communities? And then, like, everybody,
black crime?
Yeah, and then, like, I know, because while, like, I do live in the suburbs, I'm still close to my capital. I still, like, do a lot of, like, my advocacy and things I do offline in the cities of my state. And what's interesting is that, like, every day in the New York tri-state, there's a black kid getting blasted, whether it be in Philadelphia, New York City, Camden, Newark. And there's always, like, people will say things like, well, where's the GoFundMe for these kids? And it's like, they're there. Where are the vigils for these kids? They're there. Like, it's all there. But it doesn't take that much of, like, archaeology to see that these communities, like, care about making their communities, like, a better place for not only them, but for their children and their children's children. But the popular narrative is always feels like there's this, like, hint of people alluding that not only left-leaning people don't care about black people, and there's validity in that statement in a bunch of different ways, but then also, like, black people don't care about issues within their own communities, which is so far detached from the reality of the situation.
Yeah. How does that defend Candace Owens, though? She would completely...
Oh, yeah. Well, because the one thing... so the one thing that she did say, which... And something that she has been parroting for a bit, granted, how much validity is this in this critique? I don't know. Is that, like... She said, like, kind of off the cuff, like, there are people within these communities, like, doing the quote-unquote the right thing. Obviously, the right thing means something different for her. But, like, doing the right things of trying to get... I don't want to say get out, but make the community better from within. And, like, she does, like, taught that one part. All the other stuff is a whole other ballgame.
I don't do much Candace Owens since Kanye brought her to my attention. I've not touched on her much.
Yeah.
But I've seen her talk with, like, Killer Mike and other people and kind of allude to some useful discourse, but for the most part, I've only seen her kind of just say the inflammatory anti-black stuff. But,
and like to that, like, point, something that I think is interesting is that I'm of the camp of, like, you can kind of do a few things if you have problems within your community. And this is kind of what I've seen. Like, there are people who stay within it and stick it through and work within with what they got, and they're doing okay. There's, like, the growing relationship of, like, or the growing idea of, like, do what you need to do to get out of here. And for me, I think there's, like, some value in do what you need to do to get out, to come back. Kind of like, if I'm going to make a little bit of a weeb meme, kind of like a Goku sense when he's on Snake Way, where it's like, do your training, do your chops, and build yourself up to eventually come back to contribute to your community and use that knowledge that you learn from outside of that.
Right.
Because it's tough.
It's necessary. It's necessary to be engaged. And like coming back, the one thing I've told people can look a lot of different ways. Like, coming back might be cutting checks. Coming back is, tutoring. Everybody, like I spent years on the front line. So like I wasn't just teaching, like I was mentor programs, visiting kids at their home. I was low-key a social worker. And then I actually became a social worker not long after I stopped teaching. But like it wasn't healthy for me even at the time. It's definitely not healthy for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have the capacity or training to be that intense. But you can do so much from a safe distance, pending your experiences. Coach, there's a lot to do, and that's kind of the thing is we're talking about when we start talking about like the one thing that's always I won't say it rubbed me the wrong way, but one split I have with some of my peers I feel is this view that there's some type of grand revolutionary act is going to be the thing that we need to do, and I just don't. If you read Marx. The season means reduction.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like it was such it was indicative of the fact that Marx had never actually been poor, and never actually knew poor people. To think that they were going to at some point find the energy and wherewithal and internal motivation to just get froggy with the state and take it over. It's not realistic in general, but definitely not with communities that are sick and unhealthy and tired and working 2 jobs and have poor diet. It's like you can't just jump in and say, all right, here's the books, let's go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so like we have to be doing multiple things on multiple fronts, and you can, I guess, to bring it full circle, you can fit into a lot of those things. You don't have to save a kid's life. You don't have to fund a kid through college or whatever grand thing you got from your, Sandra Bullock movie. But there are so many ways you can get invested. Shout out to Anansi's Library, who just released a video a couple of days ago on how to get involved. Let me find the actual name of this. But yeah,
because it's tricky too. Because like for me, I am in a very precarious situation. I mean, my community knows it, but I guess to show part of my power levels, I was adopted, and my entire family. It's white as fuck. and I'm talking like Nixon Republicans, white Christian evangelicals. And one of the things that's really was like tricky to navigate around is that for me going to a school, like the only way that I would get checked is if I started talking. And then there was like also just the clothes I wore at the time, like when I transferred. Like I used to wear the double polo.
How old are your mommy asking?
What's that?
How old are your mommy asking?
32.
Okay. Yeah, so you're old enough where we don't have the paradigm shift. You missed like the mid to late 2010s as social media brought expanded Black visibility into all these places. You were like me. Hiding your Sailor Moon pencils,
or even like low key of like it's funny you mentioned Sailor Moon because like my sister loved that show, and then like right around like when it ended, I was like, wow, this shit kind of slaps low key, but it's like you don't admit that. Like, you don't open, you just like keep it kind of locked and key until it's finally like on some t-shirts at your favorite store, and it's like, all right, cool, we're there now. We made it.
Because I cut you off though. You were
no
going into that paradox.
Yeah. Like the one thing that I brought up, like I would always tell people like within my community is that like the I lived from like 0 to 18 with very limited black people in my life. And then I went to college and it went up tenfold. And what was funny is that I got dogged all the time by black people. Like little like I like the thing that came to mind so well to me is that I was at a party because like there was this girl I was trying to get with, so like I was just like playing the game, like, oh, you want to come to this thing? Yeah, sure, whatever. So I'm in a room with a bunch of black people just hanging out, and then I didn't know any black films at all. And I got caught. There was like it was some reference to
Coming to America or something.
No, it was It was Friday. Like to the last scene of Friday where like everybody's just kind of
like knock the fuck out.
Yeah, and then like I didn't know what people were talking about, and then someone just said he didn't see that movie.
It is like the record scratch.
Yeah, because like everybody's laughing. I'm just sitting there super confused, and then somebody just like sniffed me out, and then I just got like the gauntlet of like, you don't know this or this or this or that, and then I said like, yeah, I was adopted, and they're like, oh, here we go. And but bless the heart of this girl that I was trying to get with, because now her and I are good friends now, because like she basically said like, you're gonna learn this shit. Because like there's no one today. Yeah, so like we watched a bunch of
good friends who are white and have a black son that's adopted, and that's a profound thing, because maybe if they'd adopted him 30 years ago, they wouldn't have thought to engage with blackness in whatever ways they could, you know, because they still have his biological grandmother in his world, etc. Because I don't envy. I've always been trying to be sympathetic to like that experience, because there is no one black experience. Your experience is a black experience.
Man.
It's just not the mainstream one where you got to get all the memes. You know what I'm saying? Between 0 and 18. And, my wife, I clown her a lot. She's from New Orleans, and I'm like, what for? You completely wasted all that New Orleans. Yeah. That's deep.
Yeah, and what makes it interesting now, like for me, right, is that when I'm navigating in like talk, because the one thing I talk about a lot offline is just like sort of the consequences of adoption and how parents should like navigate around that, because I'm always like, I'm very kind of, I guess the word is like pilled or red pilled on the idea of like what your child's birth culture, like that's their birthright, and their ability to explore that should be on them. And as a parent, it should be like, these are the doors, like here are the keys to these doors, feel free to go through them if you want. Because it was really interesting when I finally reached out to my biological family, because they are all, it was so surreal, because it was like they were all coming from like different walks of life, and then I realized like shit, like what, like how different my life could have been if they were still like, if I was still in contact with them, because I found out that they were all adopted too. So save my one sister. So like they also came, like were in contact with my biological mother, but they all had like different perspectives, but they still stayed in contact with my mom. Wow. And bless her heart, because she would always like, apparently like, because my one sister who's older than me, she's in her 40s, and she would say that like, yeah, like mom would always talk about you. I was like, what? Like,
is it?
Yeah, and
then off some recipes and some albums, some LPs.
Yeah, and then what I found out was that like my mom avoided her with a lot of anti-blackness, and I tried to have that conversation before my mom passed of like, this was like kind of fucked up.
Yeah, this is a wound.
Yeah, like I don't know how to properly articulate that this is fucked up, but like, let's try to go through it, because the one thing that she would always like tell me is that like, yeah, you don't want to come in contact with any of them, they're all bad people. And then it's like, hang on, how much validity is it to that statement? Because I do understand, like, for God's sakes, Law and Order SVU, there's like maybe every season there's an episode of them shitting on New Jersey and the child care and the child system in there. Like every once in a while it's like, oh, it's DYFUS, and it's like, oh Jesus Christ, here we go. Like, so like I get it. I totally get, like, Jersey, like they're better. It's better now, but when like I'm an '89 baby, so that's peak like mismanagement. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, damn, like how, like, I don't regret anything that like, I've been through, but it's like, damn, like how much my life would have shifted if there was that advocacy of like trying to keep some level of unification.
And that goes back to, I think, what we started with, is that in defense of your mom, she probably didn't understand that you being black meant something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because white people learn to not see race. I don't care if you're black, brown, yellow, purple, whatever that phrase is. And from that comes so much ignorance of how the world looks when you are racialized as a black person. And so it's very easy to look at the dark other, and say this is a bad person because of all these things they do that we don't do, and not understand how many of those things are completely fine, how many of those things are bad within a socially white supremacist construct. You see what I'm saying? And like, and so like it's not like, I'm not against, personally, not having your experience, I'm not against interracial adoption. I'm not against that. I've worked in DFACS adjacent court systems. The fact of the matter is, I don't know any kid that grew up in the system, that's in the system, that wouldn't prefer a family of some sort that was not overtly, abusive, right? Mm-hmm. It's not ideal, but it's the reality. I'm just thinking about harm reduction. Yeah. But like, they shouldn't be, no white family should be allowed to adopt a child that is not white without having to read some Derek Bell.
Yeah. And the thing, and what's funny about that is that you bring that up, is that that's finally getting tackled now. Yeah. And what's really frustrating is that, and this is like, again, like my critique on this is towards like, I guess you would say, quote unquote, like popular black culture, where essentially transracial adoptees, so in this case I'm describing black people who are adopted by white parents, are these, in the nicest way possible, mythical unicorns when it comes to mainstream black people, because every time we talk it makes no fucking sense. And I mean, and like, I don't know if you remember, I don't know how familiar with this, but there's a Red Table Talk with God, what's her name? I should know it. It's escaping me now. Let me check.
My wife would know. She loves her some Red Table Talk.
Angela Tucker.
Not familiar with her though.
Yeah, so her Red Table Talk was rough because she described the precarious problem where Angela Tucker was trying to explain how like sometimes she feels white, and that she feels more comfortable navigating in a white world. And Jada's mom just wasn't having it. Because, and like, she was giving that face of like, oh, I've seen this face before. Because when like you hear it in the wild, it sounds like bullshit. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, hang on, like, let me reorient to see like, okay, this is coming somewhere.
Yeah. There's a blackness, and I don't know, I'm trying to be less American centered, Western centered,
Yeah.
but I can only speak to that with confidence. But I'm saying that to say I do think this is real for a lot of the diaspora, and really for non-black people, because I think I don't know if it's human nature or just the nature of civilization, but there's in-group out-group dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're black and possibly I would say probably of a colonized or oppressed affinity group, there's a constant sense of danger and paranoia. And I was so possibly like you, I grew up, so I had a very much a black mom and a black extended family, but I was a little bit of a black sheep. So like I was into nerdy stuff. I was into, heavy metal along with the usual hip hop, etc. Excuse me. And so that created, some senses of tension. This is like, hey, what's up with that? What are you doing? Where are you coming from with this? And what it stems from is, it's hard to explain, and I'm too tired to congeal this into a more effective thought. But basically, I think black people will regard black people who don't have their credentials up as possible dangers. How do I know you're not going to turn into Candace Owens?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How do I know you're not going to feel so comfortable? What's the guy that was a black, like, fascist that, he wasn't out until after he was dead?
Oh, yeah. Fuck. What's his name? I don't remember his name. Maybe someone in my chat can catch it.
I'm going to Google it real quick.
Yeah.
It was The Color of Fascism. Because, I was going back to Anansi. I was been watching Anansi all day. Anansi, shout out to you if you ever see this. But they were, it's something they were talking about in a video about fascism, talking about the fact that, look, for all intents and purposes, fascism is winning. And if fascism is winning, natural survival instinct might say, you know what, let me go ahead and get on this side. Figure out how I can get my Herman Cain spot, my Candace Owens spot, my insert whomever spot. And like, there's only so many spots. So if I know I'm not gonna get one of those spots, and you come to me talking about you ain't never seen Friday, like, oh.
Exactly.
Those side eye looks.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is hopefully not to diminish your experience, but I'm just kind of like ruminating on, like, understanding exactly why you would be frustrated. Completely valid. Understanding why Jada Pinkett's mom would be highly suspicious, and why, even though I think it's completely valid to say there's sometimes I'm more comfortable around white people. Not very often.
Yeah.
But, I can imagine. And so, like, I think both those things are valid. And I think the problem is we don't understand that that's still a black experience. To be a black child in, what's the word they use? Unambiguously black child in a all white family, a white family that has no contextual understanding of race, and then to have to navigate blackness without those basic, if we talk about RPG, terms, you didn't even get the tutorial.
Yeah.
You didn't even get the tutorial stage. You jumped straight into the main missions.
Yeah, and then what sucks about it is that you get there's like a level of like getting thrown around on either side, where like one thing that I never really understood until I got older is that basically there was a lot of there's a few families that kind of kept in track, like just kept in touch with like my mom and stuff like that. And one of them were Jehovah's Witnesses, and they would come every like kind of like bi-monthly to kind of check in on me. They were a black family, really great. But what was funny about it is that the one mother would always check my hands, and it was like really weird to me. Like she would always she would do it in such a way that was just like overt. Like she would check my hands, check like my I forget what it's called. Like it's like the dry spot of like my ankles, and just like saying if I was okay. And then like I asked her like, straight, like I asked her in post because she still like is in the area. I asked her like, why do you always do that? And she's like, I was making sure you weren't ashy. I was like, damn.
I just thought about that.
Yeah, exactly. It was like,
I was like, maybe she was trying to make sure you weren't ashy.
Yeah, it was exactly. And then
why
like,
do you not use lotion?
to attest, if I'm being dead honest, like I never was given any type of guidance around moisturization, and I didn't realize it until I was in college, where it was like kind of like, what are you the same thing, like what are you using, like the
cocoa butter.
Yeah, it's like, because like I would always talk about how it's like, yeah, like I would shower and like I'm still ashy, like what the fuck? It's like, that's because you're using the wrong stuff, and it's like, what?
There's whole nonprofits that are about like teaching mothers of biracial and transracial children how to do their daughter's hair, because that's a thing. But it's funny though, like to put it in perspective, I knew better, right? But I'll never forget when my oldest son was born. And so, here I am, I got all my advanced degrees and shit. Barack Obama's still the president, and I'm just living the liberal dream in our house with my wife, with our son, with his African name. And he starts getting ashy. His skin just starts getting real dry. And I'm like, what are we doing? So I'm putting all the shit I got from Google on his skin. All the, I don't know, Johnson & Johnson, whatever the liberal mom, earth moms with the wraps and stuff were putting on their kids. That's what I was putting on my little black son. Meanwhile, I'm still putting on cocoa butter for myself.
Yeah. And
so his rash is not clearing up. And then finally I talked to one of my aunts and she was like, put some cocoa butter on. I'm like, all right, I put cocoa butter on him, and he was a shiny ball in a day.
Yeah,
and that's like, it's the, like, to be black in America is to be in a constant state of confusion.
Yeah,
you're confused by even the fact that you're still here, let alone the numerous discourses you have to navigate to keep your sanity and or keep alive on a daily basis.
Yeah, and even to kind of reinforce that point, like I remember Target did a really conscious, or lack thereof, depending on who you ask, like effort, like we're gonna add more ethnic beauty supplies in our aisles now. And I remember like I'm like in my fucking white ass Facebook groups, like, why would we need that? And then in my back of the head, I'm like, oh, I know exactly why this exists. But it's like, and what sucks is that you kind of catch people kind of telling on themselves because they're like, baby skin is just baby skin. Yeah. And then it's like, nah, like I literally had to, I'm sure you probably ran into this from time to time, like for me, and even just like deodorant, I had to go through like the gauntlet of like, okay, which one of these things is not going to have some crazy reaction to my skin? And
shaving.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's not the worst thing about racism, right? But that's the thing that irks me the most. It's the most annoying thing. The little dumb stuff that people don't understand that they will immediately microaggress you on. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why do you even care this much about the moisturizer I put on my child's skin? Like, but it goes back to that hegemon. It's that fear of being decentered. Going back to my streamer economy critiques, decentering whiteness is a fun, like that is a eldritch horror fear for white people, because it's literally shifting the plates of the world for them. And it's like, can the world exist if I am not at the center? Yes, and it'll be much better, and you can, I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess like to tie it into even like content creation, where something that I wish people kind of understood, I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible, being black on the internet talking about anything close that's social or political is a debuff. Like if you're not like, if you're like, because what happens is like people will say things of like, yeah, there's plenty of like black creators doing things, and it's like, okay, are they not producers playing games Like, are there anybody like just talking about things and talking about life? And it's like, well, I mean, there are there, but like, okay, like, where are they? Like, are they pushed up in the out? Like, to call to your video breaking bread, like, are they getting pushed up in the algorithm in such a way where the content's getting shown? Or
well, not until recently, maybe.
Yeah.
Recently, I was when I talked to Shark, I was, what the thing that I was feeling but wasn't confident enough to say on the record on the video was that I don't see my video as the start of. Oh man, I explained it better on Shark. Basically, that the wave is already here. Like, I'm not starting a wave with that video.
Yeah.
I am commemorating. To me, I'm commemorating the end of the previous era.
Right.
By announcing that the wave is already here. Because you look at myself, Khadijah, Sean Spear, so many other creators have went from so many other creators have went from 0 to 100 within this year. And so I know from, talking to some YouTube people, and that's kind of how it happens. That's how it happened with the original, bread tube, left tube, aristocracy, that they all came up together because their fan base shared a common, interest, and it pulled them all up to have this magnetism in the algorithm.
Yeah.
But up until that point, though, because first off, this is pie in the sky secondary observation. It might my channel might die next week, and it would be completely expected to an extent. Because the history shows us that if you're not doing pure gaming content, reaction videos, comedy, sports, makeup, drama, etc., as a Black creator, you are not going to find a solid audience unless you're doing, incel, Black red pill, Black Jordan Peterson shit.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh my gosh. There's this one I follow a few of them. It's just to kind of keep tabs on the enemy, and they have so many subscribers.
So many.
It's like,
yeah.
What is this? I forget the one. It's the dude's name is I know his website is like, I'm just here to make you think. And
oh Lord, that sounds.
Yeah, it's. I'll send it to you after.
I'm googling that now.
It is some quality stuff.
Here to make you think. Love it already. Oh man, it's actually the name of the website.
Dane Calloway. Dane Calloway. Yeah.
I don't know this guy.
He's a lot. Wow. He has a whole. I mean, I'll do a quick speed run of some titles.
Is this the guy with the guns out in the middle of nowhere?
No, this is
tattoos. No, he don't have the tattoos on his face.
Like one of his videos is titled "American Indian is my DNA." I got caught on his radar because he doesn't think. God, what's his argument? He doesn't believe that Harriet Tubman's real, and that it's just it's the whole thing. And that Africans were already in Africans the first indigenous people.
Hold on. I'm sorry.
No, you good.
I have seen this guy. He has a bunch of wild conspiracy theories. He doesn't substantiate anything with that. He just claims it.
Yeah, he just throws the claim out there. Or he'll do this thing where somebody will say something. It's it's the best worst editing where somebody will say something where it's and he will just keep repeating it over and over. But then instead of talking about it, he just moves on. And it's what?
That's that strong, that Hotep, the Hotep industrial complex. Yeah. And that's where we end up. If you are a cis hetero black man, and many Black women, maybe in different ways, visible in a political sense, if you don't manage your stuff, that's where I was at. I think I talked about in the video. I was clearly drawing in this Hotep adjacent attention. And I was like, I don't really want to. That's not what I'm trying to do, y'all. Can I get some of these people over here? Or can I? I know, yeah. It's
So I talked about this on a stream, another content creator stream, years ago, or a year ago actually, about how I got kind of and this is gonna really ruin this counter narrative I'm trying to push. I fell down the rabbit hole of black separatism without knowing I was falling down the rabbit hole.
That's how it happens.
Because basically what happened was like I spent a very like dedicated effort trying to like just understand more about race, understand more about like black and blackness, and in my advocacy, like one of my friends was like really helping me out, and then he started like I just knew it as this like pro black group, and I went to a few of the meetings, and I was like, wow, this is like really big about black empowerment, and then I knew shit got south because my girlfriend at the time was white. And it was like, he's like, yo, I want you to meet like a couple of like the higher leaders of this group. Like they're going to love you. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And
you could tell you were not up on game.
Yeah. And then like my girlfriend was with us and she went to the bathroom.
This is like reverse Get Out.
It was because he literally said like, is she going to come? I was like, what? And I was not getting the vibe that he was saying, and it was just like, yeah, no, it's just like it's gonna be kind of like pretty intense, and I don't know if she's gonna be about that. And I was like, I mean, I can talk to her, and thank God she already didn't want to go because it was like somewhere like mad obscure in New York. But long story short, like I went to the we went to the thing.
New York, the hometown of this shit.
Yeah, the grand capital of Hotep niggas, and then like it was just straight up like it's like sees back just kind of generic sees back the power something Jewish adjacent something. Yeah. And then like
something vaguely anti-Semitic, something overtly patriarchal, something misogyny there.
And then it was very overt about like moving like basically the group's core argument was that like these systems are not made for us, which I would be inclined to agree. It's like fair statement, but then it's like we need to take all of our resources and not only find new land, but conquer that if there are white people there. And on the drive back, I kind of asked him like, was he serious about like? And then he was like, he was completely serious. What are you talking about?
Is this the ephemeral? Not ephemeral. What's the word I'm looking for? Is this the elusive white genocide that I keep hearing about?
Yeah, and then like I started like and it sucked because like he and I are like we're still. And when I say this, I'm saying this in a very separate thing. Him and I are fine with each other. We are just politically and ideologically too far apart to ever break bread. So what that looks like in practice, like I'll put a picture like of me and my girlfriend now on Facebook, and my girlfriend now is Pakistani, and he'll just do a side eye emoji in the comments type thing. Like,
yeah, that's a lot of my background. I remember after 9/11, I grew up Muslim. Not NOI, but Muslim.
Right.
That said, if you're black and Muslim, NOI's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know some NOI people. You know, my sister was in NOI with her husband for a little while. Whatever. But I was never very religious to begin with, and it wasn't something that was like super stressed, especially for like what it could be with Islam. Like, Islam has the potential to be very strict.
Right.
And that was not my experience. But I got to college myself, and so I remember after 9/11, so I wasn't over religious, but it was a community to belong to when you're, freshman, sophomore in college and still trying to figure out your world and your life. And so I'll never forget when I stopped being Muslim, which was at a Juma prayer on Morehouse's campus. I didn't go to Morehouse, went to Clark. And they brought in some guest imam, and he just started wilding. And I was like, yo, this nigga's crazy. Y'all not see this? Y'all not hear this dude? And when I realized, because here's the thing to kind of bring it home, and this is a parallel that if people had their minds right, we could appreciate from some of these white communities that are having similar experiences. Because the fact of the matter is, YouTube was very intentional about deplatforming and diminishing the reach of these radical groups on YouTube, right? After Charlottesville, etc. They have not done that for your homeboy here, whatever his name is, Dane, or the Abba and Preaches, and Abba and Preaches is very light for that world, but like the people they lead you to, they have not done that for the black counterpart, which I understand because it's much smaller. If anybody in the chat trying to nitpick the shit, it is completely different in practice, but theoretically runs on similar logic of dominance, right? Similar patriarchal hegemonic ideology standpoints, because we are a colonized people. We got this shit from y'all. So that said, when you are vulnerable, one of my first videos that like seemed to get a lot of good attention was the edgelord video. People think I wrote that video only about like white guys, but no, that's about all vulnerable boys trying to become men in a patriarchal society. Can find themselves attaching to this edgelord fantasy because we're looking for something to explain the world for us. We're looking for something to belong to, for something to define our identity. And I know so many young brothers that I've had to pull out of that, black separatist hotel pipeline, because it's like, look, these dudes like stop for a second. Are any of these dudes married? You want to see can these dudes, you don't care about marriage, okay. Can these dudes see their children without a court? You know what I'm saying? Like are these dudes able to take care of themselves? Like, what are these dudes doing? Like, is there so much this aside from the obvious, right? So, and that's like, you are a good example of that. So in that, you're a young man with a unique black experience that wasn't going to easily fit into the experiences you had access to, especially in a before time where there's no Facebook groups for black children of white parents. Of course you're going to wander through the wilderness a little bit, and people, and those types of people know exactly what you look like. Ooh, this nigga look confused. This nigga look vulnerable. Get that exactly.
But then it's like you can't go too hard. You gotta you gotta pad it.
Just dabble it in. So white people, right? So getting our own land, right?
And
taking the land.
And then what's funny is that the reason why I bring that up is kind of funny because one of the things that I'm fighting in my own personal discourse on the internet is that people unironically believe that I'm black separatist, or they'll say things where it's like you're very black nationalist in thought or ideas, and then every time like people say that, it's like it always feels like a dog whistle where it's like.
It's definitely a dog whistle.
Like, are you just trying to say that I'm black talking about black shit?
Yeah.
Because then when I grill them on like the specifics, it never gets anywhere.
No.
Or they'll dig up some old tweet. Like I had a situation with a content creator where they dug up a tweet where I was like very frustrated within my own community because I asked about like, okay, what are some of the black owned businesses in my area? And then in the tweet I said, because I want to support like my own. And then this dude's like, what do you mean by your own? And I know what he was. Yeah, exactly. and the thing was within the comments of that Facebook group, there was this one woman who kept saying black in shock quotes. And then like the thing that confused me about it, I just kind of asked it. It was like, why is black in shock quotes? And then I started getting pushback. It's like, well, why does it matter? And it's like, because
it does.
Because that's weird. Because I always think, like, okay, how would somebody say this? And if somebody continues to say black,
Black.
like it's gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
The problem is that the problem is the absence of critical race theory. It's and that's what frustrated me to kind of like to stir the pot a little bit when I came in and because my immediately after I started to get a little buzz, I was like, I'm going to focus solely on promoting and uplifting other Black content creators so they don't have to go through what I went. So they don't have to be lucky or catch a wave, whatever. Like there should be more room for us on this giant platform. And I think that more people are interested in what we have to say if they can find us. So that was my focus. And then I'll just say certain things started to percolate in my ear about various content creators who are streamers. And I was like, I'm not paying no attention to that.
Yeah.
I'm not, you should go on debate. No, I'm not debating. No, I'm good. Thank you. I don't have any interest in doing this. I am too old, and I'm focused on uplifting Black voices in this space. But things kept on happening, and I kept on seeing stuff, and I kept on talking to people, and people think it's about just that one story. No, there have been numerous experiences by marginalized creators with some of these large streamers where it is very clear that they have not dismantled their hegemonic need for censoring whiteness and hetero patriarchy. They will talk a good game against it on when it's somebody from the right who makes a ridiculous claim about bathrooms or whatever. But when it's time to just use a xeno pronoun, they're like, well, why do we have to do that? Bullshit. Because it doesn't fucking matter to you. Because it makes another person feel better. Do the shit. And so when that happens, and that's happening, to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
That's happening because the rhetoric is not matching the praxis.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
You have to if you like there's all this hoopla about critical race theory. Like all these guys released critical race theory critiques videos within the last year because it was a thing. But none of them clearly understand that the baseline for critical race theory is understand whiteness to not be a real thing. And the realness that it is bad. Doesn't mean that white people, that people that we consider that are racialized white are inherently bad. It's that the framework through which whiteness exists is innately a bad thing for anybody who is not white. And when they can't start there, everything else is going to fall up. They can try so hard. They can do all the things. At some point in time, they're going to put black in air quotes.
Yeah.
Or a dismantle.
And to that point a little bit, like something that I have to remember at all times is that statistically speaking, my audience has a lot of white dudes. It's just how it is.
We appreciate you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to talk my shit.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And the thing that like I started getting really, I'm still sensitive about it because I've seen it happen a few times where like the way that I talk, I'll just kind of like set the floor. The way I talk about whiteness is that I define it very loosely as practices, policies, and procedures that produce white privilege. And then I define white privilege as the prioritization of people who are racialized as white. So like the societal, political, and political and social prioritization. So like, and then when I say like we have to dismantle whiteness, is that like I like the way I frame it is that we have to dismantle these practices and these practice policies and procedures. So then that way this prioritization stops being as prevalent. And then and then what happens is like give examples. I give like here's like a simple one. Like if you see a name like Aomi, and it's spelled in a way that you have not sort of phonetically like dissected, don't just make a nickname and call them Yomi. Like their name is Aomi, not Aomide, and and I do like that level of like kind of like baseline work of like, okay, like start small, build up to the larger things. And then what I noticed is that some people, to no fault of their own, start parroting weaker versions of my language. And then I'm like, fuck. like is this what Kendi feels like?
It's and that's why, like, when I say culturally illiterate, I say that as an educator, not to be demeaning.
Yeah.
In that, if you are illiterate, it just means you don't have this skill. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you're bad. It means you don't have this skill. And you are lucky to be in the presence of a person that is in any way interested in it. Like we are precious metals in these streets. Me, you, T1J, I guess Shark, a couple of other niggas. Like the fact that we are having these fucking conversations on your behalf, we better be getting paid well for this. This is emotional labor. This is stuff I owe student loans for the knowledge I'm giving to you for free. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I understand, because I've entered this space somewhat willingly, that it means that every once in a while I'm going to get that comment, that says I must be one of those black supremacists. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand that I'm going to get that comment. Well, I don't really agree with you, but, whatever, I'm going to get those comments, and that's fine. But I also need, because I get a lot of questions about my white fandom, because I didn't start expecting a white fan. I expected not much of a white fan. But I did that Bo Burnham video, and I just knew the handful of white fans I had were gone. After that, I just like this. I sent it to one of my white friends, like, "Hey, is this it? Am I done with white fans after this?" He was like, "Yeah, probably." No, it's my biggest video, and so that fills me with some hope.
Yeah,
that gives me, that validates, because I have more radical people in my circle that don't like what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? That think I'm wasting my time giving the game away for free. Whatever. And so my argument to them is like, look, I think people are learning. I think there's value in what I'm doing, but it also means I'm putting myself under a uniquely stressful space to be trying to engage in a discourse about a thing that white people in general, when it comes to race, there are so many layers of, I don't want to call it trauma, but it acts similarly to trauma, in that if you have a behavior that is attached to an adverse childhood experience or a trauma, it takes a lot to address that bit. You have to unpack so much before you
absolutely.
And so for these white folks that are putting black in air quotes and parroting things and calling you a black supremacist, it doesn't bother me a whole lot, because I recognize that is possibly a step of growth, and that if they stick around, maybe they'll get past that particular barrier and we can get to the next one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the meantime, watch this video about loving basketball, because I'm not going to keep doing. I'm not going to do race videos I can't do those. I will pack those in between when the funds get low, maybe when I need a sponsorship.
Yeah, and even like when I first started talking about like what was going on in schools, it was just like inevitably it's about CRT. And then something that I told like my community very like, when I realized like, okay, this is their power level, where essentially they're gonna rile up certain parts of the culture war in order just to win seats in government. I was like, the minute November 2nd is over, the content's going to be gone, which is a little sad, but it's going to stop being about CRT. And then now it's like, it's shifting towards, and it's funny because they're kind of telling themselves, because they'll say, there's this one group called Parents Against Critical Theory, and something the organizer says time and time again, he's like, we already proved critical race theories in schools. And it's like, I know you didn't. Like, I know you did. But then he starts talking about like the real problem is actually equity and diversity, inclusion policy. And it's like, okay, there's the argument.
The new one.
Yeah, like
new OnlyFans out in the street. Oh, you the new.
Yeah. And And like I knew it was going to just sort of slowly creep into that because they were always kind of knocking on that, where they're just saying like, well, track the money, like track the people who are teaching the classes. Like it's not CRT, but it's a CRT adjacent, and like a blah blah something 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 something. Jeff Bezos umbrella something something NAACP.
George Soros.
Yeah,
Anthony Soros. What's his name? I don't even know my funder's name.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like. If somebody wants to fund, listen, like I tell my community this all the time. If you see me on Fox News parroting some like lifting black people up by their bootstraps, just know the check is good.
Right, you just got paid real well for it.
Yeah.
I have a dream scenario where I switch. Actually, this is my dream for Kanye West. Actually, let me just be real. where I just switch and I just go full Candace Owens, Herman Cain for like 3 years and get to the top of the Republican food chain, and then like find my way into like a centerpiece role and just completely shit on everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like I've been paying Black Lives Matter the whole time. Gotcha. You know?
Yeah. Or you'll go to like some pundit where like they're introducing some bill and they'll see all the co-signers, and there's like you see like AOC, Ilhan Omar, like the head of Bernie Sanders, and like all of these and that's just you in the back. It's like, wait a minute, what? Like that's not God. What's his name? I don't remember his name, but the only black person they have in the Senate that's on the Republican side. I forget that dude's name.
Stop.
Yeah, like that's not Tim Scott. Like the fuck, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, did we get?
Because the grift on the right is so easy. It's probably not as hard on the left as well at this point, but on the right, I guess it's more easy and lucrative. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're black, you literally like they've had the same for Negroes. I almost used the hard ER there. Me and my boys used to call them Regents.
Oh.
They got the same 4 Regents for the last like 20 years. Larry Elder, I think, is one of them.
Yeah.
You know, we had Herman Cain, you know, who they sacrificed to the adrenochrome gods or whatever their stories are.
Thomas Sowell comes to mind for me as well.
Right. You know, and it's always so fun. Like, I can't wait to do this video because, like, I find Black Republicans objectively hilarious.
Oh yeah, they're
the
chef's kiss of memes.
Like, just the hair of the average Black Republican is high tier meme worthy. And if there's one thing I wish we could share more effectively with white people, is for them to join in on memeing the hair of these Black Republicans with their non-lineup having bad perms, like bad weave. Yeah, it's bad.
And then like you'll be watching like NBA, what's it called, NBA Tonight, and then you'll get like one of the like iconic old heads that just says something a little like, wait a minute, I don't like Shaquille O'Neal, but he's saying a lot of things about improving the black community I kind of agree with. Yeah. It's like whoa, wait, chill. Like, because one of the things that like I wish, I mean, I know it. I think most Black Americans know it, but I don't trust old heads in the NFL. I don't trust old heads in the NBA. Like, they're just from a different time. Like, people are like, why didn't Michael Jordan speak up about black issues? You don't want Michael to talk.
Yeah, it's, you know, I have a video in, like, you know, when you're doing video essays, I don't know how everybody else does it. For me, I just have like 7 ideas in my head at one time. And so one of those ideas is talking about like the, you know, psychological space that especially older black men have existed in, those who are Gen X and Boomer still living, because racism was different for them. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have, like, we have it much better than them, practically speaking, right? Pragmatically speaking. And the way they sold out was like blatant. Like, at least our sellouts try to like fake the funk. But like no, they would just flip real quick, like, oh, there's a bag, and I'm done. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm gonna get me a white woman and a beach house. Wilt Chamberlain, perfect example of it.
Oh man,
run around. Didn't he run around with Nixon? He ran around with somebody. It might have been Nixon, and like was trying to clown Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Muhammad Ali, and just like those dudes. It's a but at the same time, for those who stayed, you think about how much harder it was for them. For those who did not cross that line, for the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, who still is talking that shit at this point. I'm sure he's had some bad takes. I know somebody's gonna clip that. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said, eating babies is okay or something. I'm sure Kareem has had some bad takes. My point is that for the most part, he has held it down and not crossed over like many of his peers are. He's been openly openly anti-white supremacists. Which for him to be a legend to his stature, that's significant. It's sad that it's so significant, but it is.
Yeah, and that's kind of like we can talk about this a little bit, where it's like, that's the thing that I'm very curious about in sort of like the new wave of predominantly led, unfortunately, by black men. I would say, unfortunately, asterisk and 5,000 pages of fine print with black men, where it's like, how far are you away from being Colin Kaepernick or Herschel Walker? Like there's a fine line of like where like you see someone like LeBron James, who I would argue that he is too good to be fucked with on his critiques on the system. Because like when they say like you can't use he sucks, because that's
Sharif Mahmoud Rauf, or Craig Hodges,
because
the young people in the for anybody under 30 in the chat, I was saying they were pulling Colin Kaepernick type moves years ago in the 90s, and much like Kaepernick got blackballed from the NBA. And LeBron, you can't blackball LeBron.
Yeah, and then what's funny is that, and this was the thing that frustrated me about like that arc of the Kaepernick thing, Marshawn Lynch has been passively, asterisk to that statement, doing the same shit
the whole time,
and it's like, and like, but for some reason, like, because it's Marshawn Lynch, and then they go like, "How do you feel about Marshawn?" And they're like, "It's
a great guy,
because then you get Pete Carroll, you'll get like
famer.
You'll get like Pete Carroll, and it's like you can hear the unsung rule of he just does his thing, and then they go to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, black man. How do you feel about Marshawn Lynch? It's like, well, he's a person of his own views, and he has some strong opinions about things, and it's just kind of like, don't talk to me. And then they fuck up, and then they go to Richard Sherman. And then they get the Richard Sherman take of like, and it's like, okay, Ivy League graduate, and he's just gonna like hit you with some like, just like, this is a stupid.
Richard disappointed me with his Kaepernicks, with his All Lives Matter adjacent stuff. It was like, but we'll take it for now. Yeah. And I simply don't trust cis hetero black men in the political sphere off jump. You got to check off a couple of boxes.
Yeah.
Everybody has to check off boxes, right? But I've just seen too many dudes grift that move. Like even with Black Lives Matter, like I haven't had the heart to follow all the fuckery that's going on with Black Lives Matter right now. But I wrote part of my my comp exam on the co-option of their movement, and how they started it with this intersectional, decentered, framework, and they were so successful that they eventually fucked themselves over. They were so successful in what they did that they became co-opted, and then you have people that just there for the bag. In Atlanta, we had a dude who like they were because you have non-centralized leadership.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know if this dude really was a part of the official Black Lives Matter like organization, but he co-opted their look and their message. And because he was a dude, because he was a cis hetero man, he was able to galvanize more looks and more people. And he was full of shit.
Yeah.
You know, he was probably one of, you know, of our mutual homeboys talking about taking other people's land.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna defeat colonization, you know.
And then what's frustrating about it too, and this is like my one like overarching critique about Black Lives Matter, and I'm saying this is a way because I feel like this is the floor where it's like when you have decentralized movements, sometimes it can be very hard to correct a national narrative. Because when the push comes to shove, and you have to sort of put a mic to pigs in a blanket frying like bacon, you're not going to get the organizer of that who literally made a tweet like I think the same day saying this wasn't our march at all, this was a separate thing, and I don't know what this is or where it came from, but this wasn't us. And then like for most organizers, it's like good. Be good, right? But then it's all over Fox News, but they're not calling
and OAN and else news source, Newsmax.
Yeah. And then
other places that look like parodies of news.
And then you don't get, and this is like the thing that frustrates me so much, is that you're never going to get as we saw with CRT, you're not going to get Kimberly Crenshaw on Fox News. You're not going to get Derek Bell. You're not going to get if we're talking about whiteness, you're not going to get Jim Fagan from Texas. I forget his name. Joe Fagan. You're not going to get Joe Fagan. It's Joe Fagan.
One of my professors is one of his like disciples.
Yeah, like
she would be so mad if I didn't. She would correct me so quick.
Like you're not going to get Joe Fagan to kind of correct a portion of like Robin DiAngelo's argument because like they're in academia, like they're.
But so for me though, and that's why I have, that's why I have no intention of like jumping on combative streams.
Sure.
Because what you understand is that it does not matter what you say. It does not matter. Like I have gotten to a point where I am done policing my language to an extent. I'm going to police my language enough so that my rhetoric is effective and I'm not unintentionally as much as possible offending people that I don't mean to offend.
Sure.
Or angering people I don't mean to make angry. But beyond that, like my kids go to a pretty well mixed school. And I don't code switch. And like, if I meet white parents of one of my kids' white friends, I immediately jump into race talk. Like immediately. Yeah, we love the school because most of the teachers are black and the principals are black. And that's really important for me and my black son. What do you think? Like,
well, the school lunches are good.
Right, and I will gauge their response and say, oh, well, no play dates with this nigga. Like, Cause like it's because nothing I will do will change whether or not that outcome is going to be some microaggressive, racist, overtly or covertly shit. And so like no debate with some of these assholes about critical race theory is going to change at least that person's view. Now, I'm told that there's just all these people in the crowd that don't know. And the debate is really what gets them to figure it out. And so like, sure, that won't be me. There's other people with that skill set maybe that are going to do better in that regard. I am not interested in the framework that is made for. And so like, I'm not going to just waste emotional labor on that. It's getting late for me. I don't want to leave. I know you say that we want the chat to have questions.
Yeah. Like, I guess I'll leave. Like, I guess you want to wrap it. Are you cool with wrapping at like 11:15 p.m.? I don't know what time it is for you.
We can do 11:30.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna give time because 11:15. That's like I might fuck around. Be one question.
Yeah. Because what's something I wanted to respond to is that like shout outs to one of the he's essentially like I've been on panels with him. His name is Wiggle. And something that he kind of helped me recenter myself on is that like speaking more about the things that I'm passionate about. Because one of the problems that I ran into on panels was that I treated them very academically, where it's like, okay, there's these topics, like if there's something I don't know, I'm going to read up on it and try to formulate an opinion about it for the sake of the panel. And then I started getting really frustrated because like
Nobody else is doing that.
I was the only nigga doing it. and then like I would run into like I would just get really frustrated, like things would be very exhausting. And then like about 6 to 7 months ago, like when I started like I was running at the time I had like my filings and ready to run for school board. And I was like committed to doing that. Like, this is what I'm gonna fucking do. Like, because this was something I was already passionate about, like offline. But then I was like, I realized, like, damn, like, why don't I just take the things that I'm passionate about and just kind of be a hired gun of that passionate thing? So that way it kind of like decouples like the stress that I had. Because now and it's funny because I know the topic that's going to come up if I am invited, where it's like, okay, if I am invited on the panel, it's probably going to be something about race, something about education, or something crazy that someone did at a school board meeting. And like, I can navigate that. I can navigate the, like that level of like combativeness, even though it's still exhausting, but at the same time, like I totally understand that like it's just not for everybody. And especially for Black people, we're put in
it's
this
emotional labor for us.
Yeah.
It's not. It is like we talk going back to where we started with the C word. These conversations have a slurring effect. There is psychological processes I have to work myself up to get into these conversations with people who are unconvinced, we'll say, who are skeptical, and I have to be prepared for them to, delegitimize. Why can't I say that word? What is that word?
I don't know. I say elementary, so
I have to be prepared for them to question my humanity, question my lived experience, and trivialize the history that I understand the world to have, and to play devil's advocate for their amusement. Not even like because they care or like this is important to them, but because they get off on that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing that really disgusts me about part of this space, is that most of these motherfuckers don't actually care about this shit. Not most. I won't say most. A faction of these motherfuckers don't care about this shit. They just like the sport of it. Yeah. And, my blackness isn't a sport. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you can kind of see, and like that was the one thing that really like kind of frustrated me in the initial, where like I would go on about topics, and sometimes I would just like, especially if it's something about education, because like I just don't like when it came to like this one situation in Loudon, like I just didn't fuck with it in terms of like there was so much like just bullshit that people were saying. Like there were people who were unironically saying, oh, this trans boy, like not a woman, this boy raped this girl in a skirt. And then it's like, I know that there's no way anybody knows this child is trans, because that would be like identifiable information that you'd only get from that student if they were to link us that information. So when a parent says that and says like, I know it, it's like, hang on.
You got that from your Facebook group.
Yeah. It's like, I know where this comes from, because like basically my point is that like you get like situations where people in the field can sniff out the bullshit, and then you're in this weird position of like, I can correct the narrative for the people who are watching it for me, but nobody else gives a shit because they don't. Yeah, because optically they don't care like that. Like they don't care about that stuff. And that's something that I think like, and again, like I'm only 32. It's not like I could still technically play in the NFL. NBA, I'm golden. They can go forever. But like,
not that you got 2-3 years depending on position you play.
Yeah, and if you're not named Tom Brady, it's like
not Tom Brady.
Yeah, and it's like the reason why I say that is like I know that like I'm not older, but I'm getting old, and it's frustrating because I'm starting to get this like and maybe you kind of, I kind of understand what I'm trying to say here is like there's like a separation from the discourse while still being like, damn, if I disappear, there's just gonna be bullshit that's just like thrown
So that's
around.
not true though. So
Yeah.
the great thing is there's somebody in your chat right now that is going to take your spot.
Yeah, I agree
Once you
with that.
decide to let it go, you know, and that's why I'm like, because I'm pushing 40. I'll be 40 next year. So I have cohorts of students that I've, you know, seen through college that I introduced to bell hooks when they were juniors in high school. You know what I'm saying? The movement will not die with you. And your energy and your sensibilities and your priorities are liable to change. I don't know if you have kids. I don't know if you're interested in children, but like things like children and you know, health, and just like, you know, needing to survive. I know some people that are in the streets at 50 years old in the streets for real. God bless them. Me, it's not gonna be me. You know what I'm saying? But I will fund the food service to feed y'all on the front lines. I will cut a check. I will do a lot of things because for like way of putting it, I did my time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to so there's always rooms where nobody is spitting the real shit and bullshit is spreading. And the only thing you can do is make sure that when it gets to you, it stops there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then, you know, but you have to have some type of survival instinct, because in between all of the discourses and the isms and the inequality and whatever else, we are all going to die at some point. We get one life to live. We don't get to respec. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get to finish the game. We're like, all right, I'm going to try it again as a pure capitalist and see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to try again as I'm going to put all my skill points into anti-black coonery and see what this place does. No, we get one shot. So, like, you know, do better, but also like live. I don't know.
Yeah. So speaking of them, we got a question. Rachel brought up something. She was wondering, she's like, what's your guys' take on, oh God, reading is hard. I went to school for music. Hi. So I have a question, maybe less related, but I wonder what your guys' take is on the crossover of black communities and LGBTQ communities. If that's something you can speak on, what are your opinions maybe? What issues are there that need attention? I mean, for me, how do I say this in a way that's really nice? One of the problems that I personally have as a transracial adoptee is that there's always the inevitable trans crossover arc where it's like, okay, like I have a white racial, like not white racialized, but I have a white family, so there is a level of like socialization that's very white centered, and I'm still black. And so there's like navigation around that, and in terms of like identity. But then like when you start talking about transracial adoptees, people inevitably just start talking about trans people and saying like, "Well, if you can't change your race," and it's like, of course not. Like what? And like you can like reject racialization to the best of your ability, like, but
racialization isn't about you.
Yeah.
My thing is always, you are whatever race the police think you are. That is, you know, so act accordingly. Do whatever you want, you know, on paper and with your friends, but just at least understand whatever the police think you are. You should have a decent understanding of that.
Yeah. You go first, sorry.
So with the LGBTQ stuff, I've touched on that a lot in several videos at this point now. I think there's several things. On one end, to be empathetic to the crux of where black homophobia. So the first question is, the first question is almost always, are black people more homophobic? Yada yada yada. there's ways to quantify that where that's definitely true. However, there are, I think, more valid ways to quantify that where asking that question is stupid to begin with.
Sure.
Because first and foremost, homophobia is primarily a product of colonization with at least black people. And it's always so funny when you get your hoteps that talk about we didn't do this in Africa. And it's like, no, we most definitely did. It's all over history. You just actually don't read this shit. So then you ask, okay, so why does it feel like that? Why does homophobia seem different in black communities? And that's because of blackness and the actual, nature of surviving blackness in America. So homophobia, which is why we still overwhelmingly vote for Democrats, knowing that Democrats, and why all the effort to paint the Democrats as anti-black by being pro-gay, sure has worked with a couple of dudes, but it's not really working as a rhetorical strategy for them. But to kind of get back on point, homophobia in the black community is a problem, and it's a problem that is there greatly because of white supremacy and being colonized, because homophobia, being gay in the black community, is another target, essentially. What it comes down to. You have parents raising their children, especially their boys, so there's also patriarchy intersecting there, where it's like you have to be a strong black man, thus you cannot be gay or trans or whatever, or you will die. You know what I'm saying? That's what that's the gist of it. And so there's so much there, and that's a huge thing. On the flip side, gay people, queer black people, are on the front lines of fighting for black issues pretty much probably forever.
It's close,
at least visibly for the last half decade plus. And it's frustrating that they have to deal with the rampant homophobia that occurs. That there's so many conflicts there, because I think that's why you're getting not a rise, but such loud conflict between cis hetero black men and queer black people, because these queer black people are replacing the cis hetero black patriarch as the leader of the community. And folks don't want to lose that hegemonic spot.
Yeah. And then what's I guess another thing that kind of comes to mind for me is that, and you mentioned this too, is that a lot of these ideas didn't originate from black communities, and it just kind of it manifests itself differently, where it's because of how do I say? God, there's so much in this. And I'm trying to keep it as sort of simple as I can. Where I'll use
stuff there.
Yeah, I'll use the church as an example. There's a lot there's a big pushback that I see in certain spaces about the rejection of God or what have you. And something that I always argue is that I don't think it's possible for black people in America to completely shy away from religion, because it's so culturally ingrained, where I think something might get lost in that process that is too precious for so many people. And so that's why I think there's so much resistance, because you get a lot of old heads who are just Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, don't bring that mess into my house. But then you also get more sort of liberal lib adjacent of we should.
You go in a lot of black churches and you don't see anybody under the age of 45.
Yeah.
Right now. You go in a lot of churches, period, but definitely black churches, because of what you're talking about. There's that,
or they're musicians, and there's a level of separation, and I mean this, and there's a level of separation from the word enough where they're still respecting the systems, don't curse, you show up on time, respect whether it be the pastor or respect the assembly, but at the same time there's still contradictions to the word of God within the navigation. But you're right, where it's I was raised Roman Catholic. That's just That's old Whitehead City. It's like average age 70,
Yeah.
70 to out the door. But yeah, it's bizarre because I want personally, like, I think they're like these hierarchies are just so like
They're unproductive at a minimum, right?
yeah.
It's like, you know, so me and my wife go to a church we would dabble in it before, and then when COVID hit, it was like, all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My wife was, you know, is still religious. She's still a believer. I'm agnostic at this point. And this particular church, I was like, oh, I fucks with this. This is good energy. It's very inclusive. You know, when this man talks, it doesn't feel like demagoguery, so on and so forth. But like the interesting thing is the story about how we got there. So this is, I think, within the city of Atlanta, at least before COVID, this was like the church, right? And he had a chance between this church and another church full of the old heads. And when he came talking this progressive, inclusive shit, the old heads shunned him. And now the old head church is pretty much dead. It's dead and buried because they can't attract. And that's the thing about like being wrapped in that hegemon is that you don't even realize how out of touch you are with reality. I saw a video yesterday of Oprah giving her dog like prime rib to celebrate his birthday, and saying it was the most eat the rich moment I have seen in a while. He's in like this big, beautiful, all white room, and she has Stepman on the bed with the dog, and the plate is just this succulent beef rib, and she's like, it's such and such his birthday. He is such and such years old, and serves it to him like a king. And it's like, wow, you put this on social media. Like, it's not even that you did it. Everybody does fuckery in their household in between the walls. But you said, let me share this. This won't bother anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Or it's even like another thing that comes to mind. It's totally unrelated. It's related but unrelated for the wrong reasons. A lot of people were really upset when they found out RG3's wife is white. And
how did you not know?
That was the thing. And then what's funny is that like they're just doing that like. Because I think he's my age at this point.
Probably around you.
Yeah, he's just kind of doing that like millennial pop culture-y cringe on Instagram, and like every once in a while, like his family comes out and does these like dances, and then like I see the hoteps in their comments of like. Just like they don't want to say it because they don't want to get revealed.
But then he fucked up when he did the thing. What did he say? Who says white women don't have big booties? It was something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's like.
Oh no, or was it? It was one. It was. I can think of like 5 players, and they could all just create that video, and they're like, you know what? It's all the same. Like the reason I bring that up is that it's funny how there are things in society that are on their face just totally normal, where it's like. When I say normal, I mean just like it should just be accepted. Where it's like, okay, like RG3's wife is white. All right, like cool. But then like you see people who are just like on either side, like, and it's really weird because you get the white supremacist, white nationalist adjacent, like, how dare she do this to our culture? But then you get the hotep side of how dare you do this to us, king? Or they'll hit them with the Umar, where it's like, I don't care what you do, just stay away from me. It's like, why are you smiling the entire time you say that?
It's a weird. We're off on a tangent from the woman's question.
Oh yeah.
to bring it, the point of that was talking about like these weird, not these weird paradigms that we've set up in Black communities that are basically like turns of a coin. You do this, it's okay. You don't, it's not. And we're trying to make complex, like, personal realities for people's sexuality into you're black if you do it, or you're not black if you do it, and you're black if you don't. The whole, like, I've heard this several times, like, black gay people are black first. And it doesn't make sense. Like, there's not a race. There's not an actual, like, physical race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there's not
yeah.
actual, like, go and you get a choice between grabbing the black flag or the gay flag. It's like, no, you're black and gay all the time, the whole time. And then sometimes you're going to navigate the world with queer being more significant. And sometimes you'll navigate the world with black being more significant. And we need to, especially considering the level of racism that black queer people experience within gay communities, we need not be trying to exclude them from our spaces in any form of function, especially when they fight so hard on our behalf.
There was two questions I'm going to put together because we might have a similar take. Thoughts on ABBA and Preach, but also thoughts on Gazi Kodzo.
I don't know that second one.
He's the leader of Black Hammer. No,
I don't
nothing.
pay attention to these niggas.
Okay.
If his name is Black Hammer, that probably Black Hammer.
The group's name is Black Hammer. I'll send you some stuff. It's funny. It's some funny shit. Actually, hold on. I'll send you two things that shouldn't exist within the same timeline. Imagine an individual who is very unapologetically anti-colonialism debating a white nationalist, but then at the same time making a coalition with that same white nationalist a year later.
All right.
So I'll send you two links. They're fine. But I guess, like, you mentioned it with ABBA where, like,
their diet, I call them diet black insoles.
Yeah.
You know, I've only watched a little bit of them because I just was never entertained by their stuff. And because here's the thing, when your content is, 60 to 80%, you taking the most extreme, ridiculous stories from an oppositional viewpoint and putting it on blast for you to just laugh and say, look how crazy these feminists are. Look how crazy these insert whatever affinity group you don't like are. When that's 80% of your content, you're a grifter. You're a grifter.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing anything but stoking the outrage. And we know that outrage creates engagement. Facebook knew this. YouTube knows this. Twitter knows this. Like, I stopped using Facebook a lot when I got on YouTube because I had a stalker pop up. And when I started to log into Facebook less, when I would finally log in, the first thing I would see would be the worst thing possible. and Facebook's like, you want to comment though, don't you, nigga? You want to engage with us now, ain't you? You see what he said about gay people. You see what he said about Mass Effect 3. You're like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
or even now, something that pops in, and I fucked up. So I covered a thing about West Side. So I saw West Side Story. Very good. Surprisingly good.
Is this a new one or like the old one?
Yeah, it's a new one.
I didn't know it was a new one out.
Yeah, it's really, really good. But there's just parts of it that are very... It's a musical from the 1950s, so some shit just ain't gonna hit. And one of the things that people got really frustrated about, as I learned through YouTube, because it pushed into my algorithm, is that a lot of white folks were upset that there was Spanish in it, and without subtitles. But, like, I know in the musical, like, those exchanges are genuine exchanges where the family would, like, coach the... I'm not to spoil anything for the people who haven't seen it, but, like... Yeah, but it's like basically Maria's family would be code switching back and forth, where it's the idea of like assimilate into America, or in this case, it's essentially a white dominant society, but also maintain your Puerto Rican heritage and like that exchange. And a lot of white folks were uncomfortable with like, why are they speaking so much Spanish? I don't understand.
Why am I being decentered?
But then I ran into a sidebar conversation about how the lead actress Rachel, I think her last name is Ziegler. She's playing Snow White in the new Snow White, but she's Latina, and people got upset. And it's that same the idea of like outrage culture, because then my algorithm was pushing like, you wouldn't believe what Disney's doing to Snow White.
Disney made Snow White Puerto Rican. That's a Mad TV joke.
Yeah. And people are genuinely upset. But then, like, I know in my head, it's like, this is Disney. They're gonna whitewash the shit out of her. Come on now. Who are we?
He's not gonna be Puerto Rican in the princess role.
Yeah, like she's not gonna go down. Like, this is kind of a meme, but she's not gonna go down and pass it out empanadas. Like they are going to just.
She's just gonna be slightly tanned than Snow White usually is.
Yeah,
that's it. But to answer the question though, Abba and Preach, they're grifters of. I think that's slightly unfair to them. They are offering, because they're not presenting a real political stance, right? It's clear where they politically kind of align, and they're very manosphere friendly. But like, I don't know. I'm just keeping it real. If you're like taking really strong takes from Abba and Preach, I'm not all that interested in convincing you otherwise, because you probably don't have a lot to offer to the discourse yet. I imagine their audience is all, below the age of 25, or predominantly that, because you can only put up ridiculous stories so many times, or you can put it up all the time, and make your money. But don't tell me like, no, these dudes spit that real. They don't.
Yeah. And what's frustrating about it, I'm sure you run into it, like YouTube knows that these spaces are adjacent. They'll push it to you. Like they're gonna like.
If I go on, let me see if they're still there. They were there for a long time. In my channels people that watch your channel also watch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like right now for me, it's God. My algorithm's weird. I got I have movie recaps. Travis Barker for some reason, a bunch of music, but then if I go down a little bit, it gets a little weird. Like I get a couple of like Killa K, RDC World, stuff like that. But they know that these groups are all the same, or not all the same.
There's crossover. My shit is definitely more. I think this is about right. This is about right at this point. I don't know how Legal Eagle out there. I guess I did one video with Legal Eagle, and that motherfucker has so much power that he willed his own fan base into my presence with like literally 30-second clip of him talking, because I had to cut so much of his part out of the Break Bread video. But like I don't even know who this is. Adam something? That's literally the name. It's Adam something.
Oh yeah.
But I got I got like the needle drop probably from the Kanye videos, and I'm definitely got a Drake hate video coming out soon.
But see, here's the thing: if you do a Drake video, you gotta somehow fit Majid Jordan in there. Because then
what? Who?
Majid Jordan, the saddest niggas in Canada. They did they produced a couple. They produced Waves.
See, I don't like his music.
Uh-oh.
I have stopped all Drake, what was the one with his heads in the clouds?
Oh God, that narrows it down to
on the cover.
Oh yeah, fucking God, I wish I'm spacing right now. Somebody in chat probably knows. This is the part chat where you participate and answer the question while I search it on the internet.
Album, when I search, this is how much Google knows I don't fuck with Drake. When I searched Drake Waves,
nothing was the same.
That was the last Drake album I listened to more than once. But this is how much Google in my algorithm, the algorithm guys know I don't fuck with Drake. When I searched Drake waves, I literally got images of his hair. That is how much I don't fuck with Drake. When I do like my Drake video, first I thought I was gonna be like, I'm gonna just do it like a troll. But then I started remembering all the reasons why I don't like Drake and how like some of them are really like important things to say.
Yeah.
Not just about the questionable grooming adjacent antics or the problematic wave jumping. No pun intended. Just the way he treats hip hop bothers me a lot. But
I have some questions with him and Millie Bobby Brown, but I don't know if people are right. Eilish. There's like,
there's plenty of reasons. There's bad reasons to hate Drake. Like you shouldn't hate Drake because he's light skinned or he makes soft music or whatever. Like you shouldn't hate him for that. But like that video's coming towards the end of January.
Because I guess like the closing thought there for me is that like, listen, things are a little weird when an 18-year-old girl says we text all the time. That should not be a statement that an 18-year-old says from a grown-ass
man. She's only saying that to like people 4 years in her age range, give or take 2 years up or down.
Yeah.
16 to 20.
Yeah, or it's in such a particular context that it's impossible to misinterpret. Where it's like, oh yeah, he's my like she walks my dogs.
Uncle Drake.
Yeah,
that's like my uncle.
Yeah,
he gives me career advice. Not we're really good friends.
Yeah, and then oh god. But anyway,
yeah, I need to stop. Like being alert for the rest of the day.
Yeah. So for people who don't know who are watching, this was FD Signifier, whose space is way bigger than mine on the internet of the tubes. But
I didn't even put. Well, you are you on YouTube?
I should say that I am. I am. I'm slowly getting back into the YouTube grind. I used to do Yu-Gi-Oh content full time. And that was back, and this is before the Google Plus shift. So like before Google Plus, I had like I think 1,000 subs or something, like 100,000 subs, and then Google Plus switched. I didn't verify that account, and then my shit got deleted. So, then I switched to fighting games, but now it's on like the third wave of content where I'm now putting things like I do, like for instance, this talk is probably going to end up like snippets on the YouTubes. I do panels and stuff like that on YouTube. Yeah. But yeah, and yeah, like I think I mentioned.
What fighting games do you play?
Mainly and primarily Street Fighter V and Dead or Alive 6.
Oh, okay, Dead or Alive 6.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, everybody makes that face. I did. So basically, what happened was a quick story, and I'll get you out of here. I when I got back into streaming content, I was like, I was like, damn, because I basically said like, hey, if somebody gives me like the first sub of my channel, I'll play this game full time. And then this one dude's like, bet, and he gave me 20 subs.
One guy,
that
really wanted to see Dead or Alive.
Yeah, and then he gifted 20 subs to my channel, and it's like, I guess I'm. And not only that, like the other part was that he fronted the cost of the game. So not only did he donate 20 subs, he's like, I'll pay for it too. Shit, and it's like,
he was really trying to make that happen. That is so unfortunate. I play Tekken. I don't really play anything else at this point. I used to be able to play a bunch of fighting games, but I don't have the brain elasticity to switch fighting games too much. Like it's like literally, I can't even switch characters a lot of times. Like if I switch a character, and I'm really good at Tekken. Like I'm good enough where I could keep up with pro players.
Sure.
They still mop the floor with me, but I've played like pro Tekken players and not embarrassed myself for the most part.
Yeah.
And so but like ask me to play 2 characters in a week's span.
Oh god, yeah. Or even like the notorious like And this is what got me for Street Fighter V is that like switching console ecosystems. Like, we've been on Xbox 360 for as long as you've been playing games, but now we're gonna have exclusive deals with Sony. Oh, you broke ass niggas don't have PS4s? You better go get some.
Better get one. Yeah. Man, Tekken on PlayStation is a whole different game.
Yeah.
But you're about to ask me to let the folks know where to find me and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for like starting to like. I mean, I'm looking at my face in the screen. And I was up till 2 last night watching Spider-Man. So where was I saying? Oh, so I'm FD Signifier. I'm on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram. I don't do a ton of Instagram, but I'll drop a cool meme every once in a while. And all my hot takes are on Twitter until I say something stupid and get canceled. My video, I do video essays, mostly all from a black perspective. It's, at this point, like chunks of it are about black men and black masculinity and black film. Chunks of it are about race, still touching on certain things. It's really just a hodgepodge of me talking about whatever's interesting me in pop culture at the time. My video coming out Monday is going to be reacting to other people's video essays. And later in January, early January, is going to be a video about black men as athletes in sports. And then at the end of January, I'm just going to shit talk Drake for about an hour, probably. And then like somewhere down the line, I'm going to do a wrestling video.
Oh Lord!
So you know, I got all the good stuff. All the good stuff. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but that's kind of what happens once I get past my bedtime.
I'm for me, it gets earlier every year.
Yes, expect that to continue. And if you have kids, it's a wrap.
Yeah. Oh Lord,
it's a wrap. Pick one game, one hobby that you want to keep.
Yeah.
Unless you got really strong familial support. Yeah.
Oh shit. But yeah, man. Yeah, I'll get you out of here. This was fun.
No, most def. I'll be. That's what I was forgetting. I want to start streaming. Actually, I don't know anything about how this works though. But look out for that one of these days next year for me to start doing regular weekly streams, God willing, on the backup channel, which is Signified B-Sides. That's what I wanted to put out there. So subscribe to that channel for whenever that actually starts, and maybe I'll connect back with you so I can figure out how streaming works. Because my last video or video before, it's a 7-second video of me looking at my computer in confusion because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know I was live. So yeah.
Oh shit!
All right, man. This is dope. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course, man. All right, I'll catch you soon.
Peace and blessings.